everybody. Welcome to Top Draw. It is Saturday, but it's not Saturday because it's not really Saturday at all, but it is for those of you who are watching, but it isn't Saturday for those of us who are here, which makes this one of those another time slip episodes where maybe, just maybe in this week's episode, we'll actually make it back to our own time zone instead. Maybe our own reality.
Oh, why? Why? I feel like I'm one of those Martians from the Invasion of Mars movie. Place himself and brains everywhere.
If you're gonna go Martian, you have to go with the P-32 explosive device. Marvin the Martian.
Oh, brain the size of a planet. Go get the doors.
That's a different Marvin. There you go. That shows the difference between I'm casual and I'm hardcore. I'm casual, therefore I'm all about Marvin the Martian. I'm hardcore, is therefore all about The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy with a paranoid Andrew known as Marvin. But the fact that I knew that.
I like this comparison. I'm okay with it.
I'm not, because
I'm impressed by your knowledge.
Believe it or not, I actually...
That's it. From now on, all the math questions are going to be answer equals 42. That's it. Moving on. Okay.
Anyway, welcome to Top Draw here on MMOBuff. As you can tell, I'm Pseudo, and I am joined by, and I have to come up with some incredibly acronymic things for you today, and I've got none. So I'm joined by Dr. Marshmellows, who's just proceeding with several adjectives.
Okay. I am to miss your normal alliterations. I'm okay with this. Hi. Or greetings mortals. But I think we're taking from we're moving away from the norm this episode, aren't we?
We are, just a little bit, and this is
it's all strange and unfamiliar.
It's all unfamiliar territory. The way that this works is we are going to be spending our time, of course, going into part 2 of Infinity Wars, which is our barrier to entry, which in any card game we look at is going to be our harshest and most critical critique, because in the end, if a game has such a high barrier to entry, there's absolutely no reason why people are going to want to try and play it, regardless of how good the game may look mechanically or the interesting ideas that come around behind it. But
it does make me a bad person, and I'm still looking forward to the episode where we actually don't get past episode 2 of the game. It does make me a bad person. I'm perfectly okay with this.
Whereas I am perfectly fine following suit, but we shall see what ends up happening with Infinity Wars. We already kind of blew the whistle last week by letting you guys know that there are going to be 5 episodes, which means you know that Infinity Wars is going to pass the barrier to entry test. But yes, so what's going to end up happening is a little different than what happened last episode. Last episode, you got to see me playing around and doing a little bit of the introductory content. And honestly, the introductory content is interesting, and part of some of the stuff we'll be bringing up in the barrier to entry for today. However, this time, Marsh and I have decided it's going to be a lot easier if we let you guys see certain parts of the game being played while we talk. So this is gonna get really Inception-y. I'm going to make certain that we have pre-recorded gameplay in our episode, which is pre-recorded. But it's going to be recorded on a different day than the day that we do this, and then the day that we present it, which means Inception. You know what we should do?
Right. What should we do?
We should totally see if we could get Doctor Who on this show.
Only if it's Matt Smith. Anyway.
All right,
Matt Smith, the best Doctor.
Was a very, very good doctor. Go ahead.
Moving on. No, we have to. We have strayed away from the path too far. This rabbit hole. This rabbit hole is far too deep, and we've only got about an hour.
Yes.
All right, so last episode, as we were talking about. So this episode is all about barrier to entry, so all the stuff that stops you from wanting to play, or the roadblocks, or the hurdles, or whatever you want to call them. It's all the stuff that you sit there and go, why don't I just go play X game instead? Whereas last week was more about, looking at the difference between who like between the two different types of players and how they encounter a game first up. And what happens in that first, let's go with hour of experience and how it differs.
Yep. And I also want to throw in there, it is raining in Australia.
Oh, it's pissing down.
So if the show seems a little hobbled together, it's because, you know, Marsh got rain and Australia blew up. It didn't know what to do with it. And we had to pause periodically to get the entire show in. At least the hope is we don't have to do that. At the same time, I kind of want to throw out there, it also snowed in Australia.
Yes, it did. It was really weird. Without going into too much politics, apparently our PM doesn't believe in climate change and the evidence is right outside his window.
I just also want to throw out, I find it very funny that I'm living in the UK and I brought up weather on a show.
That's all you do, isn't it? Talk about weather and Q?
And Q, yeah.
That's how this works.
It's all about
moan. That's the thing.
Q, moan. Yeah, and I don't mean Q as in something from
moaning about queuing.
Oh, that's right up there with the #1 thing we talk about when we get together here in the UK.
That's like your holy grail of days, being able to queue and then being able to piss and moan about it. And if you have a cup of tea, those brilliant racial stereotypes.
Yes, because apparently that's what we do here in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, and apparently being from the United Kingdom is now a race, not a nationality.
I know. It's just like, wow. Welcome to Top Draw, where you learn things. The more you know.
It's going to be one of those episodes. I can already feel it.
I can feel it myself, and I'm just waiting to see what ends up happening. But yes, okay. So we're going to be shifting a little and letting you guys watch some of the stuff, some gameplay, etc. from Infinity Wars. Again, we have a code. The code gets you booster packs. The code will be appearing, zing, in the chat. Zing in the chat. Zing in the chat? Zing. Wherever the heck the chat shows up on the show today.
Stay alive.
You're only saying that because of first aid. Hey.
Yes.
So we're going to go ahead and make a transition and start off some gameplay footage and let the game play. And Marsh and I are going to dig now into some crazy things. So first off, barrier to entry for Infinity Wars. We're not going to be giving out our gold stars and black pentagrams until the last episode, which is our report card episode. We purposely cover all these things in depth, and then we give a report card, which allows people to look back at and see where we're at and what's going on, etc. So, one of the things that you will be seeing being played, by the way, is the campaign, which is interesting because if this goes the way I think it's going to go, what'll end up happening is you'll see me playing the campaign, and you'll see me losing in the campaign. I have yet to finish beating the campaign. I've tried, and it might just be a thing where I need more time. That might just be all it is. Just might be it. Just that's it. I just need more time. Maybe.
Okay. I'll give you more time. You can have 3 more hours. You have 3 additional hours.
Oh God. Guess what I'll be doing after this? 3 of the hours after the show or including the show? Because I am...
Oh, no, including the show.
Oh, including... Oh, no, you can't do that. Yeah. I am not going to be playing...
Yeah,
no. Stop it. Take us into barrier to entry. You're so mean.
Okay. So our little primer for this is... So very simply put, we're going to look at, find, explain, and discuss the different... barrier to entries. It's the easiest way to put it for TCGs. It's generally speaking, that can be any sort of complicated rules, any paywalls, hard to get to interactions. But we're going to look at how the game is both facilitating and addressing these hurdles.
Yes.
And of course, we're not bad people. If we do come across something, we're going to offer, at least a suggestion as what we think could make it better. And just to preface it, it is our completely subjective opinions, and we're not game designers. Well, I'm not. Sue's a little bit, but I'm not.
You're only saying that because of Thursday's show, where I work together to build a better gaming community for the independent developers that are out there. I know you.
Yes.
The data mine. If you haven't watched it, you really should. Anyway. So, before we go into the barrier to entry for things, we have some shout-outs we want to give out to people, because last week we had quite a few people show up from the Infinity Wars community, and I'm going to tell you, one of the shows we end up looking at, or one of the things we look at in one of our shows, which is the last one, is community. And it's the community that will keep a TCG going or not. And the fact that just in the very first episode, we got inundated with a couple of you guys coming in to give us some comments and things is exceptional. And because of that, sorry, but you're getting shout outs. You're going to get certain things that, because people have made certain comments that actually reflect directly into the barrier to entry, and I don't think they realized they did that. So unbeknownst to you, you guys have actually given us even more to discuss. So let's start off with the very first thing that I want to bring up, which is something that Sahari317 said last week, which was about the Master and Apprentice session, which is where he said, or he or she, I don't know, said every 15 minutes you get a blister 3-pack of uncommon or commons using the Master Apprentice system. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with how this works, and this is interesting because neither Marsh nor I knew about the Master Apprentice system until this was made mention of, and we had to go, well, what the heck is that? So it wasn't directly put into our faces, which made us kind of go, why not? So the way it's described is the Master and Apprentice system is all about the Master who invites the apprentice to join the game through the invite system. And through that system, when they play together, in order to encourage a learning environment, I say learning environment because anything under Marsh is sort of like torture. It's great. But in order to encourage the learning environment, it's all about receiving equal IP, which is infinity points, and XP. So not to encourage the more experienced player to completely destroy the apprentice. I'm going to tell you right now, even if Marsh and I use the Master Apprentice system, he would still utterly destroy me every single time he got a chance. It would make no difference because in his opinion, the best way for me to learn is to get my ass handed to me repeatedly. And that works for him and I.
I'm perfectly okay with that. Yeah.
That works for him and I, but it doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah, this is true. Look, this system, I don't like the fact that it can't be implemented after the fact. We haven't found a way, and it would be.
We have no idea how to do it. If there's a way, tell us. We'll bring it up.
If there's a will, there's a way, right? But the fact that it can't, that we can't find a way to implement it after the fact. I didn't invite Pseudo, Pseudo didn't invite me. We made independent accounts. And because of that, we can't access this system that would be incredibly beneficial to the both of us. And not only that, harping on back to the community aspect of it, I found some really awesome people in the global chat, and some people have offered to, play games with me and all that sort of jazz. Why don't I have the option to set up this sort of relationship with just another player that wants to play with me on a regular basis? Wouldn't that would both be beneficial to the player being the apprentice and the player being the master, but also to the general environment of the game for the player base in general?
I think there's a very difficult line that has to be crossed, and this goes back to game development and game design, which is something we'll be discussing in another episode or two, actually 2 episodes from now. But when it comes to the actual development of a system or a tool that allows people to assist people, and there is some kind of equal reward for it or benefit for it, it can be abused. And there is a very delicate line that has to be walked between how do we offer these amazing sort of services and gifts, but at the same time prevent people from using it as a way to exploit the game or a way to exploit a system that was put in place with good intention. And that's it's a very realistic problem that a lot of game developers run into. And there is no game developer that has truly mastered it. I mean, it's just one of those pears dangling from a tree that you just so wish you could eat because you were so hungry and yet thirsty, and the juicy pears. It's a very difficult method to balance. So I can understand just off the back why that's not available. But I'll get into much more detail about that when we go into UX and design, because it's all about the user experience and the design. And that's when I start to pull out words that make people's brains fry a little bit. Especially when I start to talk about things like, you know, how the Unity engine works and other stuff, and people's brains will just be like, what is she talking about? Shut up, woman.
Maybe shh.
See? Just
Excellent.
like that.
All right. So stuff like that happens. To surmise, it's an interesting system, but I feel as though either should be made more aware of it, or there should be something there to make sure that when we have the ability to use it, we can use it. But we'll talk about it again at a later date. Right now, for this episode, a lot of it's going to be a lot of nitpicking, because, to be honest, there's no real glaring oversights in this game. So
I know,
we are going to nitpick, and we're going to go cliquey, bitchy, schoolgirly sort of stuff. But this is what we do. If we don't say it, someone else will.
This is true.
And they'll probably be worse than we are.
This is very, very true. But yes, so the Master Apprentice system is one of the things that got brought up, and, you know, it is kind of crazy, but also, Sahiri, thank you so much for pointing it out, because honestly, we wouldn't have never known about it. And I just double negated myself, and that is so wrong. We would not have known about this had you not brought it up. There, proper English. I'll get it in there somewhere. Now, another interesting thing that we had occur, which will lead into our barrier to entry thing, came from Mayakachi. Gustav is his name, and he is a regular viewer of a lot of our shows. He threw out, you know, this is my first time learning about Infinity Wars and watching it. Not sure I'd want to look at it because it's so technically difficult as Magic the Gathering. It just looks futuristic. Now, there's a barrier to entry for you. Someone seeing a game, comparing it to something they have experience with, applying definitive terms like difficult or complex, and then going, not certain I want to check this out. Now, here's the thing. Magic the Gathering tabletop is different than Magic Online, and this is a debate that got started last week in the chat. You know, Magic the Gathering Online, from several people who we've spoken with in the chat, pointed out, for example, Tanera pointed out that it was horrible UI design. Magic Online was just horrible UI design, and there's like a whole bunch of other problems with it. So, you know, I'm kind of thinking that what Gustav is talking about here is just the online experience. Magic the Gathering Online has differences. So comparing it to that, I think it's justified if you have that kind of experience, but don't let it hold you back from trying this game. Don't.
Yeah, look, end of the day, you never know how difficult something is going to be until you actually try it. Mm-hmm. Look, there's absolutely no downside to giving the game a try. And I just want to clarify something for those that aren't people aware of the Magic the Gathering franchise. There is so many different iterations of the online and tabletop versions that tabletop is very distinctly different to the online versions, and there's two different online versions that I know of. There's the sort of Planeswalker series that you can get through Steam, and then there's actual Magic the Gathering Online, both of which are completely butchered versions of the tabletop game. So, pick your poison there, but really, it becomes a bit like comparing apples to oranges when you talk about Magic the Gathering tabletop versus an online game. Mm-hmm. But I believe that's a bit more of a discussion for a different day, as Pseudo does something weird.
I love this. See, we have like the first 3 episodes are very much so hardcore, all about like what Marsh can teach you. The last 2 episodes are like what I can teach you. And what cracks me up about it is in those last 2 episodes, Marsh is like, I have no idea. I'm just gonna defer to what she says. I don't know. It's kind of nice. Makes me feel special. Next. I like the fact that Varsian ZZZ, which just makes me want to go to sleep every time I see the 3 Z's. I just want to go. But pointed out that the Intermediate Academy final is irritating them. Like I said, I have been playing Infinity Wars now for a couple weeks, and I have not beat the campaign yet. Now, I've not been able to sit down for a full 8 hours and just put myself into it, but I will tell you this. Everything that I have played, whether it's been the tutorial, or it has been part of the academy, or it has been part of the campaign, every time I have lost a game, I've paused and I've gone, I could have beaten it this way, and I didn't. And I also know, after I've made a decision, I usually sit back and go, ooh, that's going to be what kills me in this game. I bet you. And I'm usually right. And I'm usually right. So I'm actually learning as I go, which is massively important in a TCG. If you don't have somebody there, your quote-unquote master, being able to hold your hand and go, here's what happens in the game and here's the things you want to look for, there has to be a real solid kind of tutorial experience. And whether or not they mean for the campaign to be one, it definitely feels that way to me. But I like the fact that it's not that simple.
See, the difference between you and I for this example is the fact that I've done all the campaign and all the academy stuff, and I'm not too proud to admit that it took me way longer than I am in fact willing to admit to get past all the academy challenges. That being said, I completely sympathize with your position.
Did you have problems with the Intermediate Academy final?
Irritating. Yeah, the final one, I believe. Was it the final one? No, it's the one before the final one. Someone forgot to turn off their phone! Always happens, always. Normally we get to edit it out. This week,
Your phone went off?
Huh? Your phone went off.
My phone is turned off.
I heard something vibrate.
I was closing a box.
Not good enough.
I have a box on my desk, and I was closing my box. I just did it slow enough that it vibrated instead of snapped.
Okay, so our next shout out, these shout outs are going to be like 90% of our show. This is going to be amazing. It's going to be like a 3-hour show now, you watch. Is Dat Fox. This one's very, very interesting. So Brimstone adds immolate to all your creatures. It's better than people give it credit for. Now this, we won't spend too much time on this at all. It's interesting. Giving anything that gives everything to some of your creatures is great. Brimstone is one of the artifacts as always does this. My computer hates me recording and always shuts down. Train of thoughts. They're hard.
Brimstone, something that applies a trait to
Brimstone.
Everything. Yes.
So it applies immolate, which basically makes stuff burn over a turn for whatever the immolate was. I think it's immolate. Something, or is it something is attacked into, it does its damage plus 3 immolate damage at the end of the turn, which is great. It's like giving stuff. There's a Sleeper's card that gives everything infect, which basically means when you kill something, oh look, you get that creature at the end of turn. Anything that gives something to everything is always a little bit better than it looks, but it's not always fantastic.
This is true. I mean, one of the things that we talk about in some of our previous top draws is, you know, just because a card looks good doesn't necessarily make it good. And, you know, you can... this is where the beauty of TCGs comes into play. It's if you find a card that seems kind of cool to you, play with it, test it, and see if you can change the meta. Because in the end, what keeps a TCG going, besides the community, is the ever-changing meta, which is something we'll be coming back to a little bit later. But yes, I have to point out, I like the fact that you already have discussions going on in the community about, well, is this good? Right? This is good, right? Because it does this. I mean, don't underestimate it. But at the same time, you know, that kind of discussion is really brilliant because it makes people stop and go, well, maybe they're like me. They misread the card, as we learned from last week's episode.
hardest thing to grasp in a TCG, reading.
No, it's comprehension. You can read anything. Comprehending is a whole different story. But yes. So, moving on to the very last thing. I'm going to let you mention this because this is your area of expertise.
Right. I'm going to butcher this poor person's name. Admiral Jestern, or Geestern?
Could be Jestern. Could be Gestern.
Jestern. Could be. Ambiguous Gentleman in Blue. Found the game very interesting. Had a very dynamic learning curve.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. I promise I will not bring the soapbox out. This is, as we tend to say a lot, a discussion for another time, but
Yeah.
generally speaking, the learning experiences are very structured. One of my biggest gripes with things like the Academy is that there's not enough variation in the challenges so that it changes when you go back to try them again. It changes a little, but not enough to make it challenging once you've already figured out how the strategy works. That being said, in the actual game itself, the learning curve sort of goes from campaign to PvP. Oh my god, all the way up there. You know, it all depends. It's going to depend a lot on matchmaking for the learning curve, really. Who you get paired up against, whether it's going to have that very gradual learning curve between two people, very relative skill level, or whether you're going to have to get your face bashed 1 billion times in like rift runs like I've been getting for the last week, to actually learn how to do them effectively because you have someone show you and then you copy it basically. So, learning curve, yes. Dynamic,
Well, see, now that you've brought up riff runs, I'm going to have to mention something. There is, and it's going to appear in the chat, a fantastic piece of forum posting that was written about riff runs. Was it riff runs? Yeah, it was, because it's draft, right?
Yes, riff runs.
Yeah, because it's
yes,
about...
riff runs is their name for the draft.
It's their name for the draft, and they're... Go ahead.
Just gonna say we're going to go way more in depth in this next week in our limited and constructed segment, but probably just, you know, if you're looking at doing some riff runs, they're only 1,000 IP. They're very worth doing. Have a look at this link. It's basically the beginner's guide to.
Make certain that you
It's
comprehend
really
it, not
good. I
just
like
read it.
Yeah, good idea. Thanks, Pseudo. It's a great idea to have a look through it. It's by a German gentleman.
M to the X.
M2DX. In Infinity Wars on the forums, he has a slightly different name, but it's still really M2DX. Yeah, definitely have a look at it. So that will be in the Staying Alive place, and we might even put it in the YouTube description when it goes up on the tubes, on the intertubes.
It will go up in the intertubes. On the intertubes, it will definitely go up.
It will go up on the intertubes. Excellent. So we'll make mention of this next week, but this is your homework. People out there in internet land, read this. You have homework. Do it. Don't make them get the cane out.
Wow. Education by Marsh involving caning. This does not surprise me now that I think about it. It really doesn't surprise me at all.
Interesting factoid.
Uh-oh.
Interesting factoid. Very, very quick aside, something that I found out recently, which I found hilarious and scary at the same time. Until 2012, capital punishment within school was still legal in South Australia.
Wow. Wow.
Anyway, moving on.
And you didn't know about this?
No, I didn't. It's hilarious though, in a very sad and sort of archaic way.
The things you learn. Top draw. Teaching you things. Right. So them some peeps we wanted to say hello to and thank you to, because you guys made some really good comments, which actually taught us some things, which is nice. But at the same time, also brought up some interesting points, which are things we will be addressing in future episodes, as well as some in this episode. So I know that at some point in time, I am going to have to get a soapbox icon for MMO Buff, because I just know this episode is going to have a moment or a segment of the Marsh soap box. And I don't know why I put a space between that, but yeah. Yes, yeah.
It wasn't. It was an M dash. It was an M dash.
M dash. Whatever that is. I don't know what that is.
You're an author. How do you not know what an M dash is?
Because I just do things and then someone else edits it? No, that's not the way it works. Anyway, so we're going to move into the barrier for content. Barrier to entry. Barrier to everything. We are now sitting back at the barrier. Part of that barrier is me, apparently, making poor Marsh go insane. One slight comment at a time.
Help! I'm in a barrier. How did I get into this barrier?
Wow! Nope. Moving on. Okay. So this is literally all about things that stop us from playing.
Us bitching.
It's also things that we think are important to be aware of if you are interested in playing. So it's not just us sitting there going, oh my gosh, this is horrible. Why can't they fix it? It's also us going, this is the kind of thing that just, it just can cause the entire gameplay experience to feel weird or bad or poorly designed. So what's the first thing we're going to look at today, Marsh? Because I know it's in front of me, but I want you to say it so that we can go into it.
Is it because it involves reading?
You, sir, are an ass of high caliber. Yes. I can't read today.
Right. As the rain starts bellowing down outside my window, let's go with the first thing that really puts people off, and it's the thing that we're coming back to, and that is the game too unique. It's got lots of different aspects that you don't see, and it's even the very little things that seem like they belong, but really they're a wild diversion from what you come to assume from the TCG genre. So you have simultaneous turns, you have the generals, you have multiple card types along with factions, you've got the trading post, dodging spells, along with a high learning curve and a rule set that's not exactly explicit as to how to do all these things.
Yeah.
It's a lot. But is the game, is it gone too left field to be able to come in and take over that TCG genre in the way that's going to be impactful and effective?
Well, one of the things that we
What
stress...
do you think, Pseudo?
Well, see, this is the thing. One of the things that we stress here is, when it comes to TCG world, we want to see TCG successful because we're passionate about TCGs in general. But we also, we've had a show previously on MMO Buff. It was a Monday night show where we were discussing if you're going to do innovation and bring something new to a genre, how much can you really change before it becomes unapproachable? Before it becomes too much. And I think that's sort of where we're at with this. If you're going to do a TCG, and I want to stress, this is very much so a TCG. You can trade cards, but there are soulbound cards, but at the same time, there are non-soulbound cards, which you can also trade in various places. And the trading post we were talking about has nothing to do with that. The name itself can get confusing if you have no clue what's going on. In fact, I'm glad the tutorial brought it up, because otherwise I'm sitting there going, why do I want to go into the trading post and look for cards while I'm trying to stay focused on what the game is?
Okay.
Yeah, I know. So, what we have here is this is a TCG. The familiar sides of it is there's factions, there is competitive play, 1v1. They don't do two-headed giants. I'm still dying for a game with two-headed giants so that Marsh and I can sit there and play a game, and he will troll. He won't play seriously. He'll play a troll deck, and it'll be funny, and I will laugh and die, and it'll be great. But, you know, it's a one-on-one match. You have cards. You have a fixed amount of cards, it seems, in your deck. Have you noticed anything different there?
There's in actual play, in PvP play, there's a bunch of different types of game you can play. There's the most interesting one is merge deck, which I have still never played a game of because I can never find anyone to play it with. I always put the merge deck up there. I have a very specific merge deck that I want to play with, and basically it has no creatures, and it's just basically got a whole bunch of well, it's got a bunch of fuck you spells. And
I'm just gonna leave that in because I think that's well worth just throwing it.
I just can't think of another way to put it. It's basically, it's my troll deck, and I just can't find anyone to play merge deck with. Other than that, not only there's Pauper and there's your traditional 1v1. All interesting, but once again, does it go to left field? Is merge deck, is Pauper, like, they're stuff that we're familiar with, but do they need to exist in a game that's already trying to do so much?
Well, here's where I, as a casual player, come in. One of the things that we've discussed in previous episodes of Top Draw is, you know, as a casual player, I don't want to have the people who I'm playing up against with hate my guts because I don't offer enough of a challenge. But at the same time, I still want to be able to play and enjoy the game because I do like TCGs. My black-blue deck from Magic the Gathering back in the day was a fun deck. I had a very weird deck, but the ability for me to play against friends in a tabletop environment is superseded by playing against people I don't know. But at the same time, I'm also the kind of person who likes having an AI that is playable because I don't always want to play against somebody. Sometimes I want to test my deck against something else. And can I just say the goldfish is awesome? I just want to throw that out there one more time for everyone. Goldfish is amazingly awesome. Goldfish is crazy. Puffy is awesome. But there is so much to keep in mind as a casual player that I get confused. I'll be blunt. I do get confused. And this is just in a single game. So, for example, as I'm going through the campaigns, I've had myself run out of cards in a deck. And I'm like, what can't I do anything? What's going on? But there wasn't really a penalty for it. Like in some games where if you run out, if you fully, you know, top deck, you're done. There's nothing you can do. The game's over. You've lost. There you go. Or in some other games, yeah, there's a penalty of some kind, but there didn't seem to be one for this, which kind of seemed really confusing to me. But see, that's just it. There wasn't in the game that I was playing. Besides the fact that I just died because they were able to slowly nitpick me down and kill me because I had no cards to play. You know, that's one thing. But that's almost like stubbing your foot in somebody's face and going, yeah, yeah. And, you know, you have to sit there while they slowly decide to eat all of your pieces and then kill you, which is never a fun experience because I didn't learn from that other than the fact that you can do really evil things to people. Doesn't make an experience fun for me. But because of the fact that there is so much to keeping track of morale, keeping track of health, keeping track of my commanders and the commanders that they have, keeping track of, okay, they've just pulled a spell. Do I want to shuffle my cards around to try to dodge their attack? Do I need to pay attention to what they're going to be bringing next? Oh, wait, there's a trading post thing that's happening as well. And hey, I need to pay attention to the support zone. And then I've got the attack and the defense zone. But some cards only reflect what happens in the attack and the defense, whereas other cards reflect attack, defense, and support, as well as command. And then there's other ones where if I'm actually playing them and I do damage, there's attack being done to the support side of things as well. But not the command section, but there's others that attack the command. And my brain just starts to slowly implode. Because I feel like I had to take on so much, I get confused. I almost, I don't, actually I do partially have. Yeah. What you guys don't know is I have written down steps to make certain that I don't forget something, to make certain that I haven't missed something that particular turn. Now, the fact that I've gone that route, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And honestly, I don't know. I think for some people, it is going to be way too much. Way too much. And they will spend all their time doing nothing but playing the AI, which could be a good thing for a player who wants to just, be able to talk to their friends about, hey, I got this card and I'm able to actually speak the same language my friend is speaking. But at the same time, it can be an incredibly bad thing, because from a designer's point of view, if someone is only playing the AI, they're never going to want to get their hands on the latest, greatest cards, which means they're never going to try to make a purchase of a pack, which means what you end up having is people who will, say, talk about the game to others who already know the game, but not brag about the game, which could impact financial decisions in the end. That's my soapbox on that.
Soapbox.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. That was our unplanned soapbox.
I didn't realize I had so much to say on it.
I didn't realize you had so much to say. Look, I understand where you're coming from. I really do. The only thing I really forget on a regular basis is the trading post. I forget that the trading post is there, and it can be activated for 3 mana at the minimum.
Oh, it's 3 resources?
I forget it's there simply because...
I didn't even know it cost resources to use.
Yeah, there's 1 for 3, 1 for 5, 1 for 9. It's basically... Put a card back in your deck, draw a card for 3, draw a card, just straight out draw a card for 5, or increase your maximum resources by 1 for 9 mana. And I forget it. I do. Simply because it's just something I'm not used to. It's something I don't even think really it needs to be in the game. I'd almost go that far. I understand why it's there, but I don't think it needs to be there. I think if your game is designed effectively from the cards themselves, the only thing that the trading post is going to do is add an abusable mechanic.
Interesting that you say it that way. I mean, for me, I found the trading post to be an interesting addition, because it adds ways to drill through your deck, which is nice, because there's not a lot of cards that I've seen. The deck that I have, it doesn't have anything that drills. So it's nice to have something to be able to drill through a deck. It's also interesting to me that you have a way to manage resources towards the end of the game. If something is getting really harsh and you just need that little extra push, there is a way to do it, which I thought was kind of interesting as well. But, maybe, just maybe, you might be right. I don't know. It just seemed like such an interesting mechanic that it would... None of the mechanics themselves seem game-breaking from the trading post. They don't seem game-breaking. Because of something that you made mention to me last week while we were playing. It was actually a couple days ago while you and I were playing together. The ability to play with your resources is something that's important. But there's a certain style of card where you only need to have your turn 3, your turn 4, and your turn 5 sorted, and you can pretty much win a game. And I'm curious from you, and we should probably pull it to that just to kind of keep moving through these, or else we're going to beat this one issue to a pulp. But, you were telling me about how the decks that you had designed have your turn 1 drop, your turn 2 drop, your turn 3 drop, your turn 4 drop, and your turn 5 drops seem to be like the fuck you spells. Like the really massive in-your-face either creatures or something, and you found yourself not looking past that. Is that for all decks, or is that just for one deck? Or
okay, one of my biggest issues right now with the game is the fact that it feels very tempo based. I think, especially in PvP, in draft not so much, but in PvP, I find that the game, unless you're playing the purple, which is basically control spells, but I feel as though if you have a 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, and 4-drop, you're generally pretty set. It feels as though if you miss any of those drops, you're royally screwed, because you just lose all that tempo. You can't deal with your opponent's next drop. You can't deal with whatever because you've missed that 1-drop. I think tempo, it feels as though it's such a core thing because you have... Alright, so I need to take it a step back and explain commanders and then how the commanders affect tempo, okay?
Okay, I want to throw out there, just from what you said, I have had an experience where I was doing a part of the tutorials. No, it was the campaign. I was doing the campaign, and I did not have a turn 1 drop, and I got demolished. And it was in one of the campaigns that I had already done, and I knew how to win. It's just the fact that I didn't have a turn 1 card at all. I had a no 1 resource card. And it screwed me up. So I think I get where you're coming from. If you don't have your tempo, and it's so focused on tempo, you almost want to build proper rushes.
Yes.
Go aggro deck, go.
Well, that's it. Look, if you look at your math, and we're not going to look at the math, but if you look at the math, you can effectively set up, because a lot of the really big cards sit at 3 and 4, and
I've seen one for 20.
Yeah, look, no. When I say a lot of the very big tempo cards sit at 3 and 4.
Right.
And if you look at the way the commander system works, basically you can set the commander system up in such a way that, well, I only see 2 ways of getting it done. It's either you build a deck with 3 commanders that all have like active abilities that, you know, you pay some mana and they do something, and because they're commanders, they're effectively in play and you can use their abilities, whatever. It basically gives you another sort of trading post. The other way to do it is to guarantee yourself drops, and that's how my Exile deck works, my Angel deck, is that I'm guaranteed a mana drop turn 1 because I have Noble as my commander. I'm guaranteed a 2-drop because I have so many 2-drops. It's impossible, well, it's statistically unlikely for me not to draw a 2-drop. Then I have, I can do a 1-drop and a 2-drop, or 2 2-drops or whatever for my turn 3. Sorry, I've screwed up the math, but effectively you can go drop, play mass amounts of dudes, give them buffs or whatever because you have commanders that do that, and overrun your opponent super fast. I feel because that commander system is there, you have to allow for that tempo generated deck, the decks that rely on the tempo that the commanders give. And I feel as though the other version of deck types with the commanders that all have active abilities don't quite balance out the fact that you can have that uber tempo deck.
Now see, that's interesting to me. I mean, as a casual player, I don't always think about the tempo, although, you know, I am aware now that tempo exists thanks to you, because you're amazing. It is frustrating to me to think it could be that simple. I mean, maybe it's just the fact that when it comes to playing a TCG, you know, I like the excitement behind the TCG. I love combo. Combo is one of the things that I absolutely love, because I like seeing what crazy weird things you can do, but they're so situational. They're so utterly situational. And one of the things that, even though there are spells in decks and things like that, it definitely at least feels that it's more about the creatures you've got on the board than anything else.
Oh, this game, like Hearthstone, does a sort of pseudo combo style of combo as opposed to true combo, because you can't set up a recursive system. You can't have a system where basically you go 1,000 ornithopters. You can't do that because the turns are taken at the same time. You can't set up something that goes forever, basically. So you do something like put all my creatures in the graveyard 1 turn, and then next turn recurse all the creatures from a graveyard into play, or whatever. So it's synergy combo as opposed to true combo in the very big sense of combo. So you look for card synergy as opposed to these two cards work together to effectively win me the game.
Right. Well, there you go. But anyway, so moving back to that, you know, you have there seems to be a very big focus on the creatures that you're putting on the board. They're called characters. That's a terminology thing that's very specific to this game, because to me they're just minions. They're sacrificial pawns in my quest for global domination. You know, that's pretty much what they are. I will tell you something though, and this might make you smile, considering the fact that you and I have played several TCGs together now. I've come into this game, and you know how back in the day I started out with the whole, I don't want to kill my creature, that's kind of cool, I don't want to do that. I've come into Infinity Wars, and I'm like, yeah, they're dead. Oh well, who can I put up next? I've kind of developed this apathy to my own creatures, and it's sad. It's great though. It's great because yeah, I'm learned to be a bit more vicious, but yeah. Okay, so moving into another concept, because we want to get through these. Let's see.
Yeah, okay.
We definitely want to get through these. Right. Well, I made mention of the meta. And I made mention of it a little before, and how the meta is something that keeps a TCG going. There's always going to be the ones who are the quote-unquote winners of tournaments and things like that. And then someone comes along and goes, well, I'm going to bring this, which is going to trash what's currently in the meta, and all of a sudden everything changes and the world changes. Maybe new cards come out or what have you. All of that is really, really important to the life cycle of a TCG. It's a natural part of the ebb and flow.
Yeah.
What are you thinking impacts the meta in this game, and what are you thinking are the problems with the way that these things impact the meta?
We don't have enough time.
You have a list here. I am letting you pull from the list.
I have a list. I have a list, and it saddens me. Okay. To start with, we'll start on the big. We'll start small scale, go to big scale. Small scale, things that impact the meta. The fact that the game feels a little pay to win right now. I know you have to be very careful with those things. What I'm trying to say is the IP gain seems quite low. Unless you're playing non-stop PvP forever, it takes a long time to get a pack. And this is a problem we've had previously as well, and I put my foot in it before, but I'm gonna, if it feels off to me, I'm gonna say it on the show, and if they can produce numbers to say it's not, then that's perfectly fine. But to me, subjectively, it feels as though it's going to take me a long time to get a competitive card base to play with, and that's going to affect how I engage with the meta. Next. And that's to say to do it from free, because I don't spend money on card games. I'm good enough to actually get cards for the most part.
Ooh, look at that!
But at the end of the day, you know, you have to at least give me something. It comes down to, you know, the reason you have achievements and stuff like that is to make it feel as though a player is achieving something. And if I feel like I'm not achieving anything because I'm not getting enough IP points to get boosters, to get more cards, there's something fundamentally wrong with the game, because you need those systems in place to keep people coming back. Right. Admittedly, you do have that, you know, that free card for the login, but it's never. I've never gotten anything good from it. I've never gotten anything useful. Moving on. The trailer says new cards every week. I haven't seen any new cards this week, and I don't know if it's still new cards every week. But their little synopsis says new cards every week, and that has an impact on the meta. I can't really speak to if it is every week, but I will speak to the fact that to have a meta, there needs to be stability. So there needs to be periods of time in which the card base doesn't change for people to develop basically your rock, paper, scissors sort of format, or any variation thereof. Can you have a meta without that? I'm not sure. I've never actually found a game that manages to do it.
Well, think realistically. You know, if you're going to have a meta in a game, which is sort of the rock paper scissors of, you know, COV is able to beat up Puffy the Goldfish. Puffy the Goldfish is able to beat up, you know,
Puffy
the
can't
Dawn.
beat anyone.
Puffy the Goldfish can beat the Rising Dawn or the Ardent. I can't remember. I think it's the Raging Dawn or something like that. I can't remember now. It's gonna probably be over here, and I feel like an idiot. But as we know, we just want to show you some awesome gameplay of me totally failing as we're discussing this. But you know, there needs to be that kind of meta in place, and it needs to be stable enough to test it. To then go, what needs to be fixed? Are we missing control from a certain style of deck that is supposed to be more control? Are we missing, you know, board clear from a certain type of deck that's supposed to have some board clears? You know, all of that needs to be tested. And if there is no stability to test it, you can't get the metrics you need. And the stability allows people to come in and try it, to allow people to come in and test it. I mean, that's kind of the point.
Well, that's entirely the point. You need a stable meta to be able to balance, end of the day. And balance is a very tricky thing when it comes to TCGs, and for those of you who haven't seen or read it, there's a dev blog post sort of thingy from the Infinity Wars people that they do talk about balance. And okay, there we go. You now have it posted. More homework. It's very good. It's a good read for people that don't understand balance. It's a good primer to it. But yes, you can't continuously bring out cards and still try to balance. It doesn't work. You need those down periods. And between the two of us, we don't have enough experience in the game yet to say whether the cards are bringing out too fast or too slow or what have you. But there needs to be a period where things settle down, the dust clears, a meta is created, and then people can affect the meta. But until that point, it's kind of the Wild West. And whether it's a good or a bad thing, I don't know, because I've never had to experience something like that.
But see, this is the thing. I would venture to say, because of the fact that they're already bringing so many unique innovations to the TCG genre, to not bring a stable meta is to make people feel like they're standing on shaky ground, which can get very frustrating.
Yeah.
Especially for competitive players. Competitive players want to be able to really, you know, nail down a meta, and then when the meta changes, figure out how to affect that next meta, either as contrary to the meta or someone who contributes to the meta. I mean, that is a big part of where the TCG foundry lies. Now, this is me speaking as a casual player. You know, this is the kind of stuff I look for.
I'm so proud of you right now. I'm so proud of you right now. Keep going.
Do I get gold stars? But anyway, you know, not being able to have that impact leaves people feeling a little bit like it's an unfinished game. Even though the game could be completely finished and at a 1.0, it feels unfinished. It's like, we haven't quite got what we want yet, so we're going to constantly bring cards out, and then when finally we got where we think we want it, we're going to stop bringing cards out. I appreciate the drive to bring out new cards, because that's what keeps the meta evolving. It's what keeps a TCG interesting. It's one of those, I love this card, but I'll never be able to use it. A new card comes out, that is going to work brilliantly with this card. Yay, now I can build something with it. That kind of player involvement is important in a TCG. Not having that constant amount of stability, though, I think people are going to end up feeling almost like they're fighting an uphill battle with no chance to reach the pinnacle, and then realizing, hey, there's another mountain over here. It's like they are never going to get to the top of that mountain. They're never going to get to the end, quote-unquote, game, because the game is so quick to change. I think, personally, that's not the most wise decision. Now, again, this game could completely blow us out of the water and prove us wrong, but I, as a casual player, I look at those who are in meta. I look at those who are at the top of the charts, and I go, well, what is it they're looking at? What is it they're doing? Why are these cards working? What did they see that I didn't see?
Look, I'm so proud of you right now, because this is a train of thought you would not have had 23 weeks ago when we first started this.
I'm about to cry!
Oh
my god, I've got a compliment from Marshmellows.
I understand where you're coming from. But my biggest problem is if you go Wild West, there's much more of a problem. Like, there's always going to be the deck that sits at the top that the other decks are sort of nipping at the heels at, and eventually they're going to evolve to beat that, and then they're going to be top dog. Problem with the Wild West system is the fact that once a person is on the top, that guy ain't moving. End of the day, you're gonna have problems, and you're gonna have to balance more. So it becomes a work thing. It becomes a to me it becomes a workload thing. I'm sure, I am 100% positive there is a way to make a Wild West sort of meta work. A meta where everything is always changing and always evolving. But you need to always be either introducing cards that are explicitly there to counter the top dog deck, or you need to balance cards to make it so that there can't be a sort of top dog deck. And both ways, to me, seem disengaging. So I'm not sure how, and we have to reiterate, the game still is in beta.
It is in beta. It's in beta, but you know, when it comes down to it, it's a concern. From people who play TCGs, it's a concern. I love the concept of new cards. Do not get me wrong. But I sort of have that that desire to see the lull in the cards so that I can see either try to get my hands on all the cards that have come out, or try to get my hands on all of that particular style of deck that I'm really interested in. That lull is so important, along with the fact that afterwards, you know, if you bring out a lot of cards all at once, that actually shakes meta up big time. And then if you allow that stability afterwards, it seems like the right ebb and flow, almost like the heartbeat of a card game, almost like the heartbeat of a TCG.
That's exactly it.
And, you know, you have
heartbeat
that
of TCG, and heartbeat of a narrative.
I'm concerned for myself, because I am someone who, I'm never going to be the top dog in a TCG. If it ever happens, it'll be on the shoulders of the giant that is known as Dr. Marshmellows. And it will be him sitting there whispering in my ear going, you played that card wrong. You know, one of those things. That's just never going to be me at the top. But I like challenge, but I also need to know that there's going to be a point where I, at some point in time, could potentially be at meta. If all of a sudden my entire playstyle changes, and people do this, if my playstyle changed and I said, you know, screw MMOs, screw any single player game that's out there, I'm going to just go dig into the TCG because this game is fascinating to me, and I have had games like that before. I want to think that I have the possibility of being part of the meta. I think by constantly bringing cards out, what ends up happening is you end up in a case where you have people who join late, who join weeks later, and they're going to be doing a worse form of an uphill battle. And I'm curious to see how this gets handled. I'm curious to see how they do it, because these guys may have a secret formula that they haven't released all the parts to yet. You know?
No, it's perfectly reasonable to assume that.
No, not at all. I mean, from everything that I'm seeing, this is the thing, you know, this is our pickiest episode, but from everything that I am seeing, these guys know what the hell they're doing with the TCG. They know. It's
because they're Australian. We're just good at TCGs.
I want you all to know.
Excluding the fact that we've never had a world champion. Anyway.
I just want you to know. I think that they really know what they're doing, and it shows in the different things that they've got available. It's like they totally cater to me. They totally are catering to you. But it's not just about bringing in the players. It's about keeping them. And we have people who have watched, who've been playing since January. You guys who have, you know, been playing this game for a long period of time, and I know there are some of you watching today, let me know. Do you feel like you're constantly fighting an uphill battle to get to meta? Or do you feel that there is a stable meta? I'd love to know. Because draft is one thing, constructed is something else altogether. When it comes to constructed, that's where you really want to see a solid amount of meta and stability. Draft is always going to be slightly Wild West, slightly, because you can never guarantee what you're going to get your hands on. But constructed is where there needs to be the most stability. And I'm curious if people are spending more time playing the Rift runs than they are doing the constructed, because the Rift runs are always going to be that unstable Wild West where we have the stability of modern civilization in constructed. I'm curious. So if you guys have an opinion on that, let me know.
I love that analogy. I love that analogy. And from what I can tell, Rift runs do seem quite popular.
I wonder if there's a reason for it.
I don't know, but I had a soapbox prepared that will have to be moved to next week, I feel, at this point.
Okay. Yeah, because we are pushing time.
Sorry. We are really pushing time. But about draft, I just have to say something. I would like someone to explain to me. This is something I've run up to a couple of times now. Are you, as viewers and as players, frustrated by the commander system in draft not relegating you to two factions or two colors, and instead having the very real possibility of getting 3 commanders without having the choice of whether you want to go 1 color, 2 color, 3 color? Now, the only thing that I don't like about draft, now I love draft in every game.
You're a draftaholic.
A game will get 0 from me in one of our sections if they don't have draft. End of the day, because I don't want to come back if you don't have the draft system. But I feel as though the only thing that I don't like in the draft system, I really don't like, there's a few niggly bits, but a few things the thing that I really don't like about the draft system is the fact that the commanders dictate 100% of how I construct my deck. And my deck is very often going to succeed or fail based on how lucky I was in those first 3 picks. Now, you can say that for some draft things, but we'll take Magic the Gathering or Hearthstone draft for example. You can get very lucky in your first 3 picks, and you can get very unlucky in your first 3 picks in Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone, and you can make up for those deficiencies. You know, your first rare could be trash, but that's okay, you get a good common, all that sort of stuff. You make up for those deficiencies later on in the draft. But I feel there are some insurmountable deficiencies that if you get 3 really bad commanders, you really struggle in draft. I'm not saying that it's impossible, I'm saying that it's an unnecessary... I'm saying that there's probably a way that you can implement draft a little bit better to make it so that it's either not so commander focused, or that it at least removes some of the randomness in my commander picking to make it more enjoyable. Because I find it very unenjoyable to be able to look at a deck and just go, no matter how good I am, this deck is going to fail just from picking 3 cards. That... I've already sworn once in this episode, so I'm not allowed to swear again, that's my tally, but it really annoys me that I can look at a deck. I should not be able to look at a deck and just go, there is no way I'm getting more than 3 wins with this, there is no way I'm getting 5 wins with this. I shouldn't be able to do that with a deck, especially in a game like this.
Yep, I agree. But yes, so them's our thinkings and our thoughts on stuff. To start off.
we went full teenage bitch mode after saying that we weren't going to go teenage bitch mode.
I'm just a teenage bitch mode, baby. I'm just a teenage bitch mode. Listen to Iron Maiden, baby, with me. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Yeah.
Okay, so
but basically,
we're going to surmise a little.
Basically, what it comes down to is there are some things that limit barrier to entry. There are some things that feel nitpickly, higgledy-piggledy pop. There's a very old book from my childhood. But higgledy-piggledy pop. There are some things that feel awkward and things that don't feel like they should be. Now, again, subjective. It's always going to be subjective, but we're bringing our experiences with us, so. And we had soapboxes. Soapboxes, we have them.
Yeah.
Apparently.
We're just gonna start like mailing random winners boxes of soap soon. We're going to get like some sort of soap endorsement.
All right, let me put that on my to-do
Windex
list.
is going to soap endorsement. That's what we need.
Windex.
All right. So to summarize a little bit from my perspective, is I had to get very nitpicky to do this particular barrier to entry. Like there were some very obvious ones, but then there's some other obvious ones like the draft one, like the meta stuff that you don't really see at first glance. You have to seriously think about the game as a whole to get into. And that's a good sign for the game itself. The fact that I can pick up on these things only after having to think about them. That being said, they're flaws that exist, and from our subjective opinion, there's something that either needs to be addressed or there needs to be, they don't have to tell us the reasons why they exist, but there's better be a damn good reason why they exist. Otherwise, the game will be interesting for a short amount of time, but won't have the longevity that we want to see in all TCGs.
Yeah, that's the thing. In the end, we stress everything we talk about is to the point of seeing longevity from a game. We don't want these TCGs to fail unless they are really, really, really crap. Really, in which case, we will tell you these are really crap. They should fail. But there is something to be said for addressing these issues. And we have already said, if we ever run across a game that gets 10 gold stars from me, 10 black pentagrams from Dr. Marsh, we will stop. We'll stop playing.
No,
we'll stop playing.
That's it.
That's just how it works. Now, this means that for some people, the problems that we have brought up or the nitpicks that we have found, they don't care about that and it doesn't bug them. But for other
it could
people,
be a complete non-issue.
Yeah, it could be a complete non-issue. And for others, it could be the difference between picking up the game and installing it and never playing the game.
No.
As we found out from
and you have a free
comments.
pack, so you might as well try it.
Yes, free packs. Try it. Talk to us. Tell us your thoughts. For those of you who are, chatting with me, I am the one with the MMO buff title. This show has been brought to you by...
we
totally need to go back.
We don't do that anymore.
Yes, we do. We can do that if we want. It's our property, our IP, our version. It's from Top Draw.
This episode has been brought to you by Windex, Ambiguity in Sexuality, and the Wild West.
The Wild Wild West. But now. Oh, Dr. Marsh, I loves thee. I does. Tell you what, next week's gonna be interesting. Next week is all about draft and constructed.
Yes.
And I'm gonna tell you something. I
guarantee you I will get on my soapbox at some point.
That's what I was gonna say. I'm going to tell you, this is one of those episodes that I actually get a chance to sit back on and not say too much on, because Marsh will pontificate about things in a very, very verbose manner. And it is exciting to watch because he will get a bee in his bonnet and he will have to share this bee with everybody. And the bee could be something like, this is like the greatest thing I have ever seen. Now let me soapbox about why it is great. Or it could be, this really sucks, and let me soapbox about why it really sucks. So it can go throughout the entire spectrum, but Dr. Marsh gets soapboxes for the next episode, and I may have one my own. It all depends if I can make it past the damn campaign. I've unlocked constructed, okay, which is good, but I need to get to draft. I need to unlock bloody draft and rift runs.
Damn you, Salazar! Damn you!
Wow, now that's a reference for people. But yes, so we have next week's going to be all about barrier to entry. For everyone who joined in a little bit late, worry not. This weekend, all of our MMO Buff episodes will be put up onto YouTube, and on Monday you'll get a quick bite revival on MMOBuff.TV, so it's well worth it. I'm trying to decide which part of today's show I want to use for quick bites.
Damn you, Salazar. Matt Smith. Me being proud.
I'm gonna start blushing because you got proud of me. Damn it! Oh, I'm such a weirdo. But anyway, that'll be the second show this week I've blushed on. They had me all over the place on the campfire. They had me blushing all over the place. It was really, really. I turned beet red. Absolutely beet red. Stop complimenting me. But no, right. That's what turns me beet red. They gave me a compliment, and my face just went. I think I matched my lipstick.
Stop being decent human beings. Okay, I can manage this.
No. No, but it is good to know at least that I'm learning. So, in the end, that's part of these part of the top draw is sort of my way of trying to dig back into my childhood, reclaim what was stolen from me. Yay. And stuff. So,